Question for you. Are you like me and wondering why Robert Mueller is going before the House Judiciary Committee in a few hours to testify on the report that he spent 2 years and $20 million on? And are you also thinking, gut feeling, that this is probably going to be a bad idea and not play out very well for the Democrats and maybe even Mueller himself? Well, if you are thinking that, I'm thinking that, and I'm going to give you 3 reasons why that is the case, and we're going to start right now. Hi, my name is Kyle, and welcome to my channel where we take culture, TV, movies, and we filter it right. If this is your first time here, please hit that like and subscribe button and that bell icon so that you don't miss any future content. Now, like I said in this intro, Robert Mueller in about, 5 hours is going to be talking before the House Judiciary Committee, Robert Nadler and those guys, to give testimony on his report and what's going on with that. Well, I'm going to give my opinion on this, but I'm also going to give my 3 reasons why I feel that this is going to be a bad thing for the Democrats. And ultimately, it's all about impeaching Trump. That's really what this is all about. So let's just go back to this whole thing. This whole thing about the Robert Mueller investigation is essentially an investigation that came out of a false document called the dossier, which was not verified. That went into getting FISA warrants against a political candidate, in this case, Donald Trump. And then from there, everything comes after that. And I don't understand why the narrative with the media fails to talk about that. I have an article here that I will show you in a second that basically says that the whole thing was unverified. It's pretty much asserted and even said so in the Mueller report that this was not a verified document, yet it was still used. And so there's some questions that the Democrats are going to have to answer. And so before I get to my points, these questions are something that the Republicans are going to have to really lay down. If you're not familiar with what's going on here, essentially the House Judiciary Committee, I have a picture of who's on it right here. Let's pull this up real quickly. These are the members here. All right, so this is the 116th Congress. This is the House Judiciary Committee. Their oversight to make sure that things aren't being in violation for personnel within Congress and within the government. And so as you see, these are going to be your people that are going to be testifying. Well, these are the people that are going to be giving questions. The blue on the left, the majority party. On the right, you have the Republicans. Each one, I believe, gets 5 minutes. And Jerry Nadler from New York is going to be the one overseeing all of this. So this is probably going to be going on all day tomorrow and so forth. And so, the thing that I am going to stress, and I probably don't understand so much, is that the Democrats want to impeach this president. And my first point on this is that impeachment hearings, talk of this, is going to die tomorrow because they have tried to bring forth this particular idea before the public since the very beginning. They want to impeach this president. Never mind the fact that they can't do it because they don't have the votes in the Senate. They just want to just do something because the radical side of the party has nothing else to deal with. And they just hate this president so much, and that's their only course of action. And so I'm going to leave a link ahead here that I did a video of impeach, go for it for the Democrats, that if they were to do that, what would happen there? That in fact, they would actually lose, in my opinion, the House and everything else, the presidency, of course, but they will lose a lot. And Pelosi and those people know this. And that's why this resolution this past week failed so hugely, because the people who are in the Democrat Party who still have a little bit of common sense and understand the overall picture know that impeachment is not a good idea for the Democrats because the people don't want it and because there's nothing there to begin with. And it's going to make them seem like they're just petty when we have all these other issues going on, that they're still going to try and keep pushing this down people's throats and ad nauseum. And it's totally ridiculous. We all know this. And so that's the third point here. And the second point is we're going to finally see some real oversight because Robert Mueller has not answered several questions. Okay, Sean Hannity went over a few points. I'll cover a few of those here. There's a bunch of them, but these are just basic questions. Okay, basic questions that have not been answered by Robert Mueller, and the Republicans will have their chance to say this to Robert Mueller tomorrow. Now, I'm hearing that Robert Mueller's going to have some company there. He's going to have a deputy assistant there to hold his hand. I don't know. And that is outside the rules. At the last minute, they're bringing another person in to help him testify, for whatever that is. He's still bound. He's still under oath. So it shouldn't matter. But at the same time, that's the kind of politics that they're trying to do. And moreover, just recently, this is kind of funny before I get to these points here. The Mueller campaign received a letter from the Department of Justice. It said essentially this. The AG, Secretary Barr, said that that you must adhere to the guidelines and the scope of the Mueller investigation. In other words, the letter basically said, look, you must answer your questions within the guidelines of the report that you came out with. And of course, the media took that and went totally crazy with it, thinking, okay, see, there you go. You have the Republicans, or you have Attorney Barr, who is, Trump's puppet, they say. He's telling Mueller what he can talk about. And of course, then you have Nadler come on the air in an interview saying, yeah, well, you don't work for them. You can say what you want to say. But come to find out, that letter was at the request of Robert Mueller. So Robert Mueller himself said, look, can I just talk about what's in the report? And so you have this in combination with this person coming in holding his hand, possible security blanket. You begin to see that there's nothing there in this report, or really at all, that is going to implicate the Trump campaign of anything remotely illegal or related to collusion. It wasn't there. It wasn't there from the beginning. And it starts with the questions like this. It starts with, for instance, when Hillary Clinton was diagnosed as having gross negligence and willfully mishandling classified information, was that a violation of the Espionage Act and other crimes? That's a question that never has been answered to or asked of Mueller. Or how about this one? When did the investigation on Trump begin? When did it start? Because there's a counterintelligence operation against him. Okay, or what about this? Robert Mueller had a mandate to go after the Russia collusion against Russia himself, Trump, or anything else related to that. But yet, why was that mandate expanded to go after tax evasion and taxi cab medallions and all of this extraneous stuff, which had convictions and indictments, but had nothing to do with the original mandate? Why was that pursued? And particularly not the dossier, which I'm about to bring up right now. This dossier. So the dossier is essentially a made-up, highly funded report, which basically had Trump in Russia doing some really crazy stuff, and that he was being blackmailed by the Russians and so forth. And of course, that was not corroborated. But that they got 4 FISA warrants on that to justify a wiretap investigation on the Trump campaign. Why was that happening? Also, why was it not revealed that the Clinton campaign and the DNC paid for this dossier, and that everything that came from the report to the dossier was all coming from an illicit, unverified document? Okay, and so what we're seeing here essentially is this, and you have text from Page and Strzok, the DOJ investigators. Text messages that have come out, been released recently, that said they're talking about this particular leaking strategy. What is this leaking strategy coming from? What does that mean? What I think it means is this. It means the fact that you have this huge lie, and this came from Jim Jordan. He actually, Congressman Jim Jordan from Ohio. He said this in an interview recently, that it's a big lie. The bigger the lie, if you can leak information about that lie, it gets out to the media more because they have nothing else to talk about. We're in a clickbait society now. That if you get that lie out there, get people talking about it, all of a sudden people start believing it. Then you can use that chatter and those conspiracies off of that big lie, which was the dossier, and use that to justify the dossier FISA warrant. Simple as that. And why not investigate the Clinton campaign? If we're really talking about the Russia collusion into the elections, this is all about the elections, by the way. I failed to mention that. If this is all about the Russia collusion in the elections, then why not go after the Clinton Foundation and all these other pieces, or send it off to another group to have them investigate it like you did with other things with Cohen and so forth. And all of these things happen that will finally get a chance, hopefully in a few hours, to get these questions asked and get Mueller on the record. Now, I think what the Democrats are trying their best to do is they're trying to get him to maybe lie, to justify their feeling of what they think Trump did, so they can have that soundbite, so they can go off and say, hey, you know what, he said this. And that's what they're wanting, right? Their justification for impeachment is based on lies from a dossier. We have lies from the media. Fake news it happened over and over and over again that kept being refuted and so forth over and over again, but it didn't matter because it was out there and people just weren't paying attention to the retractions, right? They're just going off on this narrative that all this stuff happened. It didn't ever happen. And so now you have this out here, and now you have Mueller, who never really said emphatically that this was not a Russian collusion attempt by the Trump campaign. He did say that no American was involved in it, but then he said, well, you know what? Hey, well, we couldn't find any evidence, but maybe he did, and we gave it over to the Attorney General, and he said that there's no collusion. Well, unfortunately, in that situation, which was not honest at all, in my opinion, it was never his job to make a recommendation. That he provides the evidence, and he passes it over to the Attorney General to make a verdict on that. That is the mandate. That's how it works with the Justice Department and the laws. So that should come out for tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll get some oversight from the GOP, and we'll get to see the Democrats wiggle a little bit and see if they can, if they can come back and maybe refute some of the things that even they said that were not true, that they at one point said, and they had to backtrack on. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out tomorrow. But number 2 is going to be we should see real oversight for the first time ever in this particular deal, because now we're going to have an audience on the left and the right, mostly on the left, and some people are going to see some of these questions for the first time, and for the first time be like, whoa, I didn't know that happened, because the mainstream media is hiding it from them and not keeping them in the know to keep them ignorant so they can continue their clickbait assault on this country. And lastly, most people just don't care, all right? At the end of the day, people really don't care. The economy is doing well. Trump has approval ratings through the roof. You have North Korea at bay. You have other things going on that are important. You have things going on right now in society that are with immigration and sanctuary cities going on, and you have legislation that's trying to get passed to help do that, funding for the wall. You have things that people just do not care about. The polling is showing right now that people really, 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 really do not want to impeach this president. But yet the Democrats, with all of their might and all of their muster, want to get this to happen. But what they don't understand, and this is what I was talking about to my wife earlier, was that when you go after the president this hard, you have to make sure you are legitimate in your accusations and everything else. That wasn't there. So now you have a small group of people within the Democrat Party, the ALC plus 3 consortium. These people just don't care about the big picture for their party and for this country. They are going to do whatever they can to make their promise to impeach this president, knowing that's going to fail in the Senate. But if they were to do that, based on the way it is now with the country, the people are going to revolt in the election of 2020. And they know it. You're going to impeach a president with a year, 2 years out from an election. And after all this has happened, 2.5 years, $20 million plus, all of this stuff, taxpayer money, and fake news that's been refuted and so forth. People are tired of this. And it's just going to backfire. It's going to galvanize the GOP base. GOP is going to fundraise like crazy. It's going to remove any traction at all that the Democrats may have with their identity politics, what they're trying to gain with this racism stuff and these tweets, whatever. It's going to dwarf that in terms of fundraising and excitement on the GOP side. So I say, like the video I put above here, I say go for it. If you want to impeach this president, it's going to be a landslide of epic proportions in 2020. And I don't think Nancy Pelosi wants to do that because she will lose the House. She will be out of power. And unless they primary AOC in New York, she very well could get reelected. I don't think Nancy Pelosi wants to see herself and AOC on the same level. Obviously Pelosi will have some other power within the party. She may be a minority whip, sort of, but for the most part, she's going to lose the whole ball of wax, and then Trump is going to have his full Congress, hopefully, of MAGA candidates, people that are going to help him to finish up his term, his last term as president. And I've said this prior to that, if the Democrats were to win the House, which they did, that things can shake out, because I know the Democrats, all they're going to do is just pander to the left, and they're going to investigate, and be totally ridiculous and childish. And it's going to allow the Republicans to regain the House in 2020. And I said this, I'm on record of saying this, that if that happens, which it has, which means I think this should happen, that President Trump will have the greatest second term of any president in the history of this country. I pretty much know them all. George Washington had a pretty bad one. Lincoln didn't have one. Roosevelt didn't even run. Teddy didn't run. At FDR's second term was the Depression. It still didn't work out. I think World War II was kicking off then. That wasn't really good. I can't think of a second term of any president. Polk didn't have a second term. He ran one time. And I just can't think of any president. Even Reagan had the Iran-Contra. The more I think about it, there isn't a president that had a good second term. And it's going to be easy for Trump to have the best, because there have been so many poor ones, because lame ducks just don't get anything done. And so what do you think about this? What do you think about Mueller testimony tomorrow? Do you think anything's going to come out of it? Do you think there's going to be a big bombshell? Do you think that the Democrats are going to finally get their smoking gun so they can lay down the impeachment on President Trump? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you have like this content in this channel where we take culture, TV, movies, and we filter it right, then please, I suggest, hit that like and subscribe button and that bell icon so you don't miss any future content. And as always, please consider hitting the videos we have right here, and I'll see you next time.